everyone, and welcome to another episode. Today I am going to be talking to Sarah Michelle, otherwise known as Michelle de Joya, about networking. So networking can seem really scary, and this is kind of the first part of a series of talks that we're going to be doing about this. Our conversation was pretty long, so this will be part number one about networking. So please enjoy. Welcome. It's great to have you here.
It's wonderful to be here.
So the topic of this episode, as you can see from the title, is networking. And I feel like Sarah Michelle is very good about talking to people and making friends with people.
Yay, I'm glad you feel that way.
I mean, but that's like honestly what networking is, and I feel like you really make it not a scary thing. I feel like a lot of people are scared of quote unquote networking because it seems
sleazy.
Yeah,
it does.
So and I feel like it's really important to not think of it as a sleazy thing, and I genuinely think we should start thinking of it as like we're making friends with people.
Yes, especially in the city. That I cannot stress that enough, that you don't have representation a lot of the time in the city. You don't have an agent that's sending you out for theater auditions. Mm-hmm. Maybe for commercial work and stuff like that, but not like in New York where that is what your agent would do, or that is what your manager would do. Here you are your own manager, so unfortunately you have to talk yourself up. You have to sell yourself as if you are a product.
Yep.
So it's not a bad thing to brag about yourself. So when I grew up, my dad works at basically it's like high-end bank, and he would take his clients to go see musicals. Broadway tours coming in, and he'd always be like, oh, well, my family can come because that's the plan. So he's, as their financial consultant, is supposed to become friends with his clients. So they bring their families, and so I would have to basically talk myself up to these very rich people. So they'd be like, well, what are you doing in life? So I got really good at talking positively about myself, making myself sound successful, making my trajectory sound promising so that I wasn't embarrassing my dad. Being like, I don't know, I work at Jack in the Box. Do you know what Jack in the Box is? It's like a McDonald's in the Southeast.
I've definitely heard of Jack in the Box.
Okay, good. And so recently, I think at that audition where that girl was like, are you nervous? And I was like, no, I'm not actually that nervous. And it was because what I noticed is I knew everyone in the room. So when you walk into an audition room and you know everyone in it, it's way less stressful.
Oh my gosh.
So there's not a problem being friends with the people in the room. Also, if they know your work already, that's all part of networking as well. So it's not a bad thing to get to know someone and have them trust you as a person. Because sometimes when it comes down to choosing two actors, they could be like, well, there's this person we can take a chance on, and they're super talented and super skilled. And a lot of times they will take that chance. But they could also say, this is someone that I know their work, I've worked with them before, I trust them as a person, and they're gonna do a good job. So it's those are the two possibilities. And sometimes, I don't know, I can't say which one they normally go with. I feel like they normally go with the person that they
I feel like they normally go with the person that they've already cast or that they already trust. Unfortunately, I feel like as Midwesterners especially, it's like we don't know how to talk about ourselves. Yeah. Especially in a positive way.
Yes.
It's like we're taught to downplay ourselves.
Yeah, which is just not helpful. And I guess I'm very East Coast, so I'm super good at talking quickly and talking about myself. But my biggest step, this is the biggest thing for me when it came to networking, was one, go to events. Go to opening night parties, go to closing night parties. When friends are like, oh, we're just going out for drinks. Even if you don't drink, just stop in for a second. If you have the energy, if you have the time, if you have the money, of course, don't over exert yourself and get tired or spend too much money. But if there's a nice event or a gala that you get invited to for a theater company, go to it.
Yeah.
Or season release parties, stuff like that. If you get invited, stuff like that, go to it.
Yep.
Just become friends with things. Or I honestly, when I go to see shows, I try to come on opening night or closing night so that I can go to the events and make friends. Because that's
really smart.
It's just a smart thing to do. So I remember once I went out, this is my biggest step in networking. I went out for drinks after a show once. It was my first gig in the cities. And I was literally talking to someone who was in the cast, and he was talking to someone else and one of his friends. And we just kept talking, and then I find out he was a well-known director in town. And I was like, oh, I didn't recognize. And then he was like, oh yeah, I'm doing blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh, I got called in to audition for that. And he was like, you did? And I was like, yeah, I can't go. And he was like, oh, why are you telling me this? And so we just made jokes about it.
Right.
And through that, though, I got to talk about what I am doing. And it was like, even though I can't come in to audition for your show, I like think it's really awesome. I read the sides, I read the play. I think it's a really cool piece. I'm excited to see it, but I'm busy doing this. And I just explained my season basically to him, and he was like, oh, well, that's really amazing. And then we kind of just exchanged names on Facebook, and he messaged me a week later to call me in for something else in the spring. And he just personally messaged me because we had this great conversation.
Yep.
We were easy to, like, when you're easy to talk to someone, you know you can probably anticipate you're going to be easy to work with.
Yeah.
So he just called me in for that. No, I didn't get cast in the thing he called me in for.
But
then
the fact
now
that,
I know him.
Yeah.
And when I run into him at the university or when I run into him in public spaces, I'm always like, oh my gosh, hey. And we know each other. We're friends now. We've worked together multiple times. Because of that, like, experience, just being able to talk myself up, he was like, well, I trust this person. Mostly because they're outgoing. And that's, like, a really good
trait to have as a theater performer.
Yeah.
Knowing that you can, like, put yourself out there. I mean, that is. And I do think, like, so I have, like, a hard time sometimes, like, doing things. Like, I'm just kind of, I can fall into these, like, introverted, like, habits that, because it's like, okay, I feel safe here, and I'm like, I don't have to exert too much energy. It's, you know, that kind of stuff. But I have been making a point to, like, go out and do things more often. And I notice that, and it's like one of those things where I have to continually remind myself, and I know there are a lot of performers out there like me who have just, like, a hard time getting out there and, like, doing things. And I think the biggest thing that I have to remind myself every time I'm, like, vacillating between, like, should I go to this party or should I not, or whatever, besides, like, can I physically get there, aka do I have something already, you know? But besides that, it's like, okay, usually the worst thing that can happen is you go and you don't know anyone.
Yeah. And
there's not really many, like, it seems very cliquey maybe, and then you leave.
Yeah.
That's
the worst that can happen.
Literally the worst thing that can happen. The world doesn't end, because it's like anyone who has, like, kind of any social anxiety at all can feel kind of like this, like, feeling that, like, you're gonna go and something bad is gonna happen, or, you know, whatever. And it's like this, I need to remind myself that, one, you could have a great time and meet someone new and have a lot of fun. Or two, you don't meet anyone, no one is there, and you go home.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's it.
Yeah.
And I think reminding yourself that, like, it's okay to feel awkward and it's okay to feel out of place sometimes, I think is, like, important and a good thing, because, like, that's what happens to me is, like, I'm always like, people are gonna think I'm, like, or, like, you know, thinking too much about what other people think of you, and literally no one thinks anything of you. People are so busy thinking of themselves.
Yeah. One of the big things that people don't tell you about is that when you do start to do well in the business, you will have to go to donor events and you will have to talk positively about yourself. And people will notice if, one, you don't show up to donor events. Theaters will take notice because the people who are literally giving all this money are the donors, and they want to meet the actors. So if the actors aren't showing up, the theater will take notice of that, and they will probably, sometimes maybe preferential to people that, like, can
know
talk
how to
the
handle
people
themselves,
and be friendly with and converse with the people who are essentially giving most of their money to the cause. Like, it's very important to be able to, like, be thankful to the people who are able to make this art happen. Like, I know a lot of people just don't, like, they hate that. They hate talking about themselves. They hate talking with people that they don't really have to talk to very often. But it's, like, super important because those people have put a lot of their money into making you be able to do the art that you're making.
I like being social with people that I know and that I'm comfortable with, but sometimes being social outside of that is, like, a little scary for me. But if I think of it, and my mom instilled this in me at a very young age, that, like, you have to do your job. Like, you do your job regardless of, you know, whatever. And if I think of these events more as, like, this is part of my job and I like kind of have to do it, it honestly makes it easier to go out and like talk about myself or whatever. And yes, it drains me, and yes, I have to like come home and like really like, you know, because that kind of socializing is just draining it. But like the more of you think of like a donor event like that as like, this is my job and I am kind of obligated to talk to these people and like be friendly and that kind of stuff, it honestly makes it a little easier than like, I don't know, not
like,
thinking of it.
Helpful
like
hints when I go out to like donor events is like use the buddy system. Like either invite your partner if you have a significant other, or ask someone else who's in the cast, be like, hey, let's tag team for this event so that we're not alone. It's like you always have someone that you're with so that you have someone to talk to when you're not talking to someone else.
Exactly.
Like, it's way better to have buddy system at events like that.
That's super smart.
That way you also have someone to go to the bathroom with and someone to hold your drink while you're tying your shoe. It's really important.
You don't want to ask a donor, can you hold
this? Thank you. Yeah, this is my ninth. I know.
Don't judge.
Don't judge. Another big thing. So you were talking about like if you're someone who doesn't like going to events. Networking does not have to be event based at all. So like these are two of my like big tips for networking is don't be afraid to ask people for coffee. That's like a huge thing. Like email casting directors that you like, email artistic directors that you like if you can get their emails, or if you just run into them like at a show and you're like, hey, I would love to like get coffee and talk about, I saw this show on your upcoming season, I'm super interested, or just like, I really want to know what you're planning to do with the concept for that show because of the issues like this, and this, and that's something I care a lot about. I want to talk to you about that. Doesn't necessarily mean you're like showcasing yourself, being like, I want to be in this show, this person is me, which is also possible. But it's sometimes just showing that you care about the show itself.
And you care about like their work. Everyone wants attention. Just like no matter what, no matter if people say that they don't or whatever. It's like when someone shows that interest, it's like, oh, that's like, it's nice. It's nice to be like noticed or like whatever.
Yeah,
like everyone has felt that before.
We're working with small theaters too. Like you don't have to email like, you know, all like the top artistic directors. You can email small artistic directors and become friends with them. That's a very fine way of networking because they know people up top too. And that's an awesome way to do it. And then the other thing, like through email, is if you do ask for something, say I email an artistic director or a casting director and I'm like, hi, I would love to be seen for this role, blah, blah, blah. Also, I'm currently in this show at blah, 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 blah. If you'd like to come, I can totally get a comp for you.
Oh, that's cool.
So I've
never thought of doing that.
Oh yeah, I always offer comps for shows that I'm in when I'm emailing an artistic director because it also shows, one, you're working, and two, they want to see other people because they want to see upcoming artists. Because they want to snatch the newbies while they can and get them committed to their theater. So that's like a super smart thing to do. Is just like, I can get you comps for this if you'd like to come. Or sometimes I'll say I get a comp and I'll just buy them a ticket.
That's really smart.
So
because you don't always get comps.
Yeah. Or you can always ask, like, if you go up to your director, like, hey, I really want this artistic director for this theater to come see my work, and they said they're going to come. Can I have a comp for this night? And usually that theater will be like, yeah, I would love for the artistic director to come see this.
Yeah, because it's, again, small town. Exactly. Like, everyone wants...
Exactly. And then asking people for coffee is always great. It could just be, or asking another actor that you just admire. It doesn't have to be someone that can move you up the food chain. Like, it can just be another actor that you like.
Yeah, no, I think that's... And, like, I think that is another... So, like, one, thinking of networking or, like, donor events or, like, those kinds of things as, like, a job can be really helpful. But I think thinking of, like, that kind of one-on-one networking as a little more of, like, I just want to get to know a person on, like, a personal level. I think, like, that's an important thing to think of is, like, okay, this director might be a really, you know... high-end director here or whatever, but they're also a person who, like, you know, might want to have a friend. Who doesn't want to have friends, you know what I mean? And, like, if they have the time and, like, you know, you're a friendly human being, like, why not just, like, grab a cup of coffee and, like, chat? And, like, the great thing about coffee is, like, it can be as long or as short as you want it to be. I always tell people, on your first date, don't get a meal. Only get coffee or drinks because, yes, with a meal, you are committed.
You're like, oh, I'm not hungry now. Bye.
Coffee and drinks are, like, super non-committal. It can be, you can talk for hours or you could meet quickly for, like, 45 minutes. It's that, it's like, it's that easy. Thank you so much for watching. I'm sorry I had to cut it short, but stay tuned. There will be more on networking with Sarah Michelle kind of coming up soon. So I hope you have a great week.